A very good morning to you. Welcome to a brand new week. It is a new week. I think that's a very good morning to and welcome to another, I was going to say surprising week because I feel like this week is full of surprises.
Every week in Nigeria comes with surprises.
You understand? It feels like October came with a lot of surprises, but you see this November, we are not even ready.
Powerful.
It's like a lot of unfolding. If you're following social media trends, you see that there's a lot of unraveling, a lot of exposition, and many, many things that we didn't even think about. Well, this is how we welcome you to this edition of Idea Morning Digest right here on Idea TV. I'm never alone. I have the melanin popping Cynthia Bassi, who will be doing justice with me. Is she going to do justice to me or with me? Okay, with me.
With you. Not to you. Never. Not to you.
Hi, Cynthia. Good morning.
Good morning, Chinatu. Good to have you back. I mean,
Lady
when you were saying that, I was starting to think, oh, yes. I was starting to think, okay, what they are saying about Ember Month. I think it's true. The Ember Month is a very powerful month.
It choked my sister.
Well, our viewers, it's good to have you with us. Start your wonderful morning with us this morning. And like we always say, we implore you to send in your comments, your opinions, your ideas, your thoughts. Join the conversation. You can send it to our social media platforms at Idea Television, and of course via email at ideatvlimited@gmail.com. And don't forget to say we want to hear from you.
Well, you heard Cynthia. For now, let's go on a short break. But before we do that, let's quickly bring you up to speed with what you'll be expecting from the newspaper review or news review. Starting out first, we'll be looking at ASU blaming the federal government's neglect for Nigeria's education crisis.
And Total Energies won Paris climate targets now out of reach.
You'll also be seeing that new report links global banks to billions in deforestation financing.
While Christian genocide allegations sparks religious tension in Nigeria.
Of course, this and more what you'll be having when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Number 2, advanced neurotechnology beyond BCIs. Brain-computer interfaces grabbed headlines.
Welcome back. Let's now get into the stories. The Academic Staff Union of Universities says the federal government's persistent neglect of the education sector is at the root of Nigeria's prolonged academic crisis. ASU President Professor Chris Paiwuna made this known during a virtual interview with Professor Toyin Falola, where he criticized government officials for treating education as a lone national priority rather than a shared responsibility across ministries. Professor Paiwuna said members of the Federal Executive Council often view challenges in the sector as the sole burden of the Minister of Education, which has hindered meaningful reform. He noted that corruption, self-interest, and a profit-driven ideology have further weakened public education, with suggestions now emerging for TET Fund to support private universities. Other experts at the events, including Professors Igukari, Sheriff Dean Teller and Nigeria Labour Congress President Joe Ajaero, called for stronger leadership within universities, better research funding, and a holistic approach that links higher education reforms with improvement at the basic education level. Paiwuna added that ASU's negotiations with the federal government were nearing conclusion, but warned that the union rejected the current salary offer, describing it as unacceptable. I mean, if I were in their shoes, I also see it unacceptable, Cynthia. If you look at the trajectory, you realize that it's been a long battle between ASU and the federal government, and it's been from one story to the other. Oh, we're going to fix this. Why? I'm still wondering, why is it taking so long for them to come to an understanding? Why? What is the government saying? What is ASU saying? Why can't they just come to the negotiation table and finally decide? Because who are those getting hit by this the most? We already know the students, but more than the students, we have the lecturers who are also starving, who have their own lives to live. I mean, they have their children. Some of these lecturers, when people say, the students are going through a lot, I just tell myself, I hope you also know that these lecturers have children. These lecturers also have students as kids who are either in that school or other universities. So indirectly, their kids also get affected by this strike. So it's not a one-man battle, but I'm hoping that the government really comes to the table, sits with the ASU body, and finally decide and put an end to this. Because truly, like Paiwuna has said, it looks like education is not priority in this part of the world. And you can check the indices and you just realize that it is true. You go to so many schools today and the basic things are still lacking. So it's either as a result of embezzlement of the funds, or funds are being misappropriated, or it's just not a matter of priority for the government, or they just do not see why they should invest in it. I mean, example, we see what happened with the Tigers. How do they call them? Yes, those
The
are
Tigers,
yes,
yes.
the Tigers.
The-
When they played the match, we saw the rewards they got, and then we saw what happened to that Teen Eagle champion. How much did she get? I think it was about 200,000 naira that she got. So what does that tell us? It tells us where this country places education.
True.
I'm not saying sport is a bad thing. No, of course, we want to encourage talent as well. But you cannot place sport over education. What are you telling us? There are things that are very silent and they should be taken very seriously. And so education is one of that. And I'm sorry to say, or not sorry to say, and it's not been a matter of priority as far as I'm concerned here. And that's why every now and then we see ASU not agreeing with the government. You're seeing the conversation tilting towards, what are we going to do? I'm not accepting this. And then the people who are suffering are suffering. The students are staying away from school. The students are having to suffer the heat the most, and it doesn't just make sense to me. I hope we finally come to a conclusion and we put a rest to this.
Well, I think, when ASU speaks, it's not just about them coming to speak. It's not just about the lecturers. I think this is accumulated frustration to start with, because, I mean, we've seen, Perona is like one of the very souls of Nigeria's intellectual community, and when somebody like this comes out to talk, then we must take it seriously. Because the truth is that Nigeria's education sector rather, has been underfunded and undervalued, just like you've rightfully said, Chinatu. And let's not forget what UNESCO recommended, that 15 to 20% of annual budget of every country must go to education. Now, what have you seen in Nigeria? It's not even close to that. We are talking of, we have barely even touched 5%, compared to even Ghana that has gotten up to like 13 to 15%. I'm not even talking of South Africa, that we know that they have even surpassed the 20% recommended by, UNESCO. So I feel like when ASU complains, it's not just about salaries. It's not just about, to me, it's about a larger system failure that we must pay attention to. Our universities are under-equipped, because these are some of their plea. Our universities are under-equipped. Our universities are poorly funded. There are no research facilities. We are not even prioritizing research in Nigerian universities that much. And we've seen that even the average student today learns under conditions that are not even favorable, that are considered even in tertiary institutions. If you go to classes, you'll be wondering if that is a primary school or, some sort of, I do not even know where to classify it. But then, ASU also has a part in it. I like when you said it's a shared responsibility. It's not just one person's problem. ASU also has to share part of this blame, because frequent strikes, I always say that this frequent strike cycle is not the way to go. You mentioned that students will be the ones who will be affected, whether we like it or not, more than anyone else. I know that salaries will not be somehow paid to lecturers, but then students will waste how many years at home? I remember, let's take from 1999, when all this ASU strike started, down to 2023. There was frequent strikes. We can count up to, like, say, 45 months that Nigerian universities went on strike, the ASU went on strike, and that's like 4 academic years gone. You can imagine the time wasted for so many students, for so many children, for so many people. So why ASU calls out the government or the government's neglect, I feel it's rightfully so. I think they are doing the right thing, but then the solution is not just about criticism at this point in time. The solution is to start thinking of innovative ways. We have to start reimagining education in Nigeria. We should think of, education more than just education. We should think about it from the aspect of it's a national security. It's, start taking shared responsibilities. Ministries, communities, parents, everybody needs to come together at this point in time, because a country that neglects education, I don't know where it's going to stand at the end of the day. You will not produce stability. And we are trying to see how we can stabilize, the country, especially with all the tension arising this period. And then we have our education falling short. So I think we should do better. We should do better if we want to, move past all all of these things. And, education, I think at this point in time should be what should dominate policy making. But then, I don't know where we'll go with this. I just pray that this educational crisis do not risk being an existential crisis in Nigeria. But then we have to move to the next news. French energy giant Total Energies has warned that the world is unlikely to meet the Paris Agreement goal of limiting global warming to below 2 degrees to make up about 60% of the world's energy mix by mid-century, pushing climate targets further out of reach. Today, Total Energies outlined 3 possible scenarios, trends, momentum, and breakthrough, with only the last offering a pathway to remain below the 2-degree target. However, the company described that scenario as nearly unattainable in today's divided geopolitical climate. Environmental critics say the warning rings hollow as the firm continues to expand its fossil fuel investments, including more than 100 planned oil and gas projects nationwide. I think this is where everybody should, pause and draw their ears closely, because let me start by even saying there is even a debate going on now about climate issues, and I see that some set of people are coming out now to say climate issues is just
exaggerated.
A facade. Yes, that's the new development now. That's the new debate in town. But I don't know where to stand with this. But I feel like, first of all, let me not digress. Let me go back to what Total Energies is saying, their outlook for 2025. In essence, I'll take this as a confession, because the world is failing to meet the climate goals, and yet we are pretending as if we do not know. During the Paris Agreement in 2015, there was a global path limit that we are supposed to, meet, and that's a temperature of like 2 degrees Celsius, and ideally, let's just say 1.5 degrees Celsius. But according to Total Energies now, we have not met that. We are on track of, let's say, 2.8 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. Not this year, by the end of this century. And that number might sound like, okay, what are these people saying? But if we look at it well, it is not just numbers. 2.8 degrees Celsius means the world is going to go through, because I was reading one other report and I'm seeing this same matters arising. 2.8 degrees Celsius would mean that the world is going to face severe droughts. The world is going to, there will be catastrophic flooding. There will be a lot of things. Our food system will be collapsing. The inflation we are talking about, third world countries, especially countries in the down south like Nigeria, are going to suffer. There will be unlivable regions. We are seeing what is happening in Niger State with floods, and all of those things. Especially countries like Nigeria, and I repeat again, especially countries like Nigeria that are in the down south. In fact, the World Bank has also warned that last year the climate change could displace up to 86 million people, if I'm not missing the numbers, in sub-Saharan Africa by 2050. And now, here's the irony. What's making me laugh here is that Total Energies is coming out to give this report and warning the world to be, cautious and be careful as to how to meet these 2 degrees Celsius or 1.5 degrees Celsius as minimum. But Total Energies is the world's largest fossil fuel producers. That's where the irony sits for me, and I begin to wonder. So while the company warns of, this climate disaster, I think them continuing to invest heavily in oil and gas projects is another problem. Have they come out to, look for solutions or tell the world how they are trying to, mitigate it, control it? It's not completely hypocrisy, because it's also a reflection of the world still needs fossil fuel. Because that's another debate. Are we completely going to, because there's a push for end the use of fossil fuel or completely eradicate fossil fuel, but are we going to completely eradicate? Let me come to Nigeria now, where we know that most of our monies, most of our revenue in the country comes from oil. So I'm thinking, okay, at this point in time, what are we going to do? What about, industries, sectors that need fossil fuel to survive? But then I just feel like the West can continue to preach about all of this fossil fuel, climate responsibility and whatnot. But if they do not hold themselves responsible and accountable for some of these actions and the solutions. And another thing I need to even state is that we must move from always dishing out the problems. We must also move from also bringing the solutions. It's time we start acting on those solutions. So I think this is where all of these Western worlds or, industries are coming out to preach about climate responsibility. This is where they need to hold themselves accountable and be responsible for the solutions and be responsible for their actions as well. If not, we know where it's going to suffer. The down south is going to suffer. The underdeveloped countries, like they call countries like Nigeria, are going to suffer.
Well, and unfortunately for us, we are down south. We are here, so we could get the heat. But it's very interesting that Total Energy is making this warning. It's telling us that, if we do not do this by the year 2100, then the kind of global warming that will hit the whole world may not spare you and I. That's what they're telling us today. But it's very ironic, like Cynthia has pointed out, because you are producing this. So how are you you're also part of the problem. It's like saying somebody who manufactures alcohol, telling people stop taking alcohol. If you're really interested in making sure people are healthy or do not take alcohol, you can stop the problem by not producing alcohol.
Exactly.
So Total Energy is giving us the statistic, giving us the report. But are they really accountable? Can we say they are accountable enough? They are not. If you really care about the world problem that much, you would not be part of the problem.
Exactly.
So you're publishing a report and implicating every other person except you. Of course, you're seeing the money, so why would you not? Why would you? It just feels like, let me be the good person. Let it not look like I'm not making a report. I just think this is a usual report. Just make the report at the end of the year.
Industry must fulfill.
Yes, let's just make the report. So the Paris Pact is not their problem. Because if it is really a thing of concern, they should be calling out people or other companies to come together. How do we come together and, one, innovate? How do we come together, pool our efforts together and fix this problem? We cannot always say, trust me, before fossil fuel, what were we doing? It's an innovation. So something can still come out of this.
Exactly.
But it takes two to tango. They will have to come together and decide, how do we innovate? What can we do to have clean energy? What can we do to ensure that whatever kind of energy we are producing does not cause harm to the planet? That's what we should be talking about. But you publishing a report and trying to crown yourself the savior and every other company the bad guy. Nah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Let's head on to the next story now. A new report has implicated some of the world's largest financial institutions in the ongoing destruction of global forests, according to the Forest and Finance Coalition. International banks have poured more than $72 billion into agricultural supply chains linked to deforestation over the past 18 months. The funds were directed to sectors such as beef, soy, palm oil, pulp, paper industries long identified as threats to forest ecosystems. The report, titled Banking on Biodiversity Collapse 2025, released on November 5th, also revealed that institutional investors had held $42 billion in shares and bonds across nearly 200 companies endangering forest and forest-dependent communities in Southeast Asia, West and Central Africa, and South America. The coalition noted that despite global commitments, including the 2015 Paris Agreement, voluntary action from the financial sector has failed to curb environmental destruction. The authors are now calling for strict global regulations, urging central banks and financial watchdogs to integrate biodiversity protection and human rights into their mandate. They also recommend tougher disclosure rules, legal accountability for environmental harm, and stronger penalties for violators. The findings come ahead of the 30th United Nations Climate Change Conference COP30 in Brazil, a stark reminder that financial decisions remain deeply tied to the future of the world's forests. Okay, I mean, we saw COP39, COP29 rather, and now COP30 is here. But they're calling on banks. Who are those who reach out to these banks and say, it's a circle. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, we need this, but we don't need this. So it gets to a point where you've exploited something and it becomes a problem. And that is what we've seen in the banking sector. So what can we do holistically to fix the problem? There are many banks who in their head now. They're supporting education, and so they're investing into the paper sector, produce more books, have more children in school. They're investing into farms, telling people produce more farms, plant more trees. But oftentimes, when these things are done, there is no concrete agreement as to say there is a control. This is where you stop. So it's just promises upon promises, and nobody is really being held accountable. Nobody is checking these things that are produced. What kind of harm are they causing? What is the ripple effect on the society? So it's more like we're only finding the good, and then this good come back to haunt us. And that's what we are experiencing today. And deforestation is something that we do not want to experience. We're talking about the effect of climate change. You're not ready to see. Let's even do a very simple example. If you stay in an environment where there are no trees around, can you feel the air? The kind of air that you inhale is very different from where there are green trees or green grasses. The scenery is good. And we think there's development. Some people say, I'm sitting in an estate, and the whole of that estate, there's no single tree. You're harming yourself. You do not know, but that's what's happening. And so we have financial institutions that are investing into housing, investing into education, and they're doing that by encouraging trees to be cut down. And the ripple effect is on the environment, on our climate, how it affects us, how we affect even our animals. So I think there has to be a balance. It's not bad to invest in these things, but there has to be a balance. There has to be somebody holding people accountable to say, oh, this is where you draw the line. You can't fall trees to this level. It's just like we could tell people do not eat bushmeat every time, but you can't stop people from eating bushmeat. What you can do is to control them. Tell them you cannot eat this one. Regulate and say, oh, you cannot traffic these animals. Because if you leave people to themselves, they'll do whatever they want. And I'm not sure that we want a country or a world where we won't find forests. It won't be funny. I can't even imagine it.
I think this story is a very, very profound one, because it ties us back to the previous one, still about climate issues. I think the figure it tells us something profound if we look at it very well, because the destruction of nature, what this is telling us is that destroying nature is not by accident these days. I think it's finance now. This is what it's telling us, and we need to pay close attention. I'll go back to talking about education and understanding, creating that awareness. First of all, we can say these industries are big, and whatnot. But what such reports should do for them is to help them understand and evaluate, their actions by the end of the year, by first, second, or maybe third quarter of the year, and redirect their steps on what they should do next, or what they shouldn't do, or what they should stop doing. So when a figure like this comes out to tell us that, when reports like this comes out, it gives us statistics that over $72 million, is poured in financing or driving, deforestation indirectly, or directly or indirectly at this point in time. I think we need to drag our ears to it and listen to it. What is going on? To put this into perspective now, if we are losing 10 million hectares, that is the word, of land every year. That's very worrisome. It's very worrisome, because that's almost like a whole country. 10 million hectares of land is almost like a whole country. So forests are not just trees. That's what people should understand. First of all, we should understand that forests are not just trees. Like you've explained it, they are more like the planet's, lung that helps the world breathe. Let me even put it that way. That helps the world breathe. It regulates our weather pattern. And if you can imagine a place, a sparse land, no trees, no nothing, how do you expect to breathe? How do you expect to survive in such environments? So when we destroy them, we should always have it at the back of our mind that we are destroying our lives. We are destroying our future. And we are accelerating, these are the things that accelerate global warming and destabilize our entire ecosystem. We should know that and have that at the back of our mind. And like I said in the other news, there's still an irony here. Most of these reports are coming out from these industries, from these big industries, from these big companies. And
But I think this one is coming up from climate activists and environmentalists who are
Okay.
very concerned.
Okay.
Yes.
Forest and Finance reports. Okay. You'll be very surprised because I know that industry sat last year, if I am not mistaken, that's before COP or after COP 29, and they were talking about the ESG, that's environmental and social governance goals. But then, where is this? And they talked about reports, that they are going to be dishing
Every
out
time
reports, more like to evaluate their stance and where they are going to. So why they keep financing and destroying these habitats? They are forgetting that people are dying. I guess that's what they do not put at the back of their minds when they are doing these things. We just think about money. I mean, money is at the front of everything. But then, this upcoming or the COP30 in Brazil, I think we have to confront some of these hypocrisies, because I don't know what we want to do again. We have to just confront these hypocrisies head on this time around, because until all of these financial systems are held accountable, environmental pledges to me will remain talks on paper, slogans. We'll keep carrying placards and be advocating. I mean, I guess that's the reason why the other side of the group of advocates are already saying that it's a facade. Climate issues is a facade already, but these are the things causing some of the climate issues. Climate issues is not just about, I guess that's where we have to go back to education, but then I don't want to dwell on this, but I just hope we do better.
So,
I just hope we do better with our environment.
we are agreeing that strict global regulations will fix the problem. Because I also think that most of the time these financial institutions, they just come in, they make their promises, oh, I'm going to donate 5 billion, I'm going to donate 20 billion, but nobody holds them accountable to say, what is the consequence of that money? How will it affect the environment? So you just tell us the good parts, but how it will affect us, you do not tell us, because you're now financing those who are destroying the forest. So if they really hold people accountable and tell them, okay, come out here and tell us, how is this thing that looks like a very good thing you're doing for, sometimes like CSR, whatever you're doing, how is it going to now affect the community? How is it going to affect the people? Maybe banks will not just make promises, they will start holding themselves accountable. And that's where I think environmentalists, all these our activists, they have to go beyond holding placards,
meetings.
and they have all the
events.
best meetings in the best rooms, travel around the world holding meetings, and yet nothing comes out of those meetings. COP29 has passed. Now we have COP30. What are those things that came out of those meetings? We sign pacts every now and then. We come into agreements, but the same issues still persist. So what do we do? Cynthia, next story.
Okay. So we move to religious tension now. I mean, a lot of tensions today. Religious tension has flared in Nigeria following sharp disagreements between the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria and the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs over allegations of Christian genocide. The PFN president, Bishop Wale Oke, insists that Christians are being systematically targeted by extremist groups such as Boko Haram and ISWAP, citing attacks in Benue, Plateau, Taraba, and other states. He urged President Bola Tinubu to cooperate with former U.S. President Donald Trump, who recently condemned the killings and threatened to send U.S. troops if the violence continues. However, the NSCIA, through its Secretary General, Professor Ishak Oloyede, dismissed the genocide claims as false and politically motivated. Speaking at a press conference in Abuja, Oloyede said the violence in parts of Nigeria stems from criminality, poverty, and climate pressures, not religious persecution. He accused foreign media and political groups of distorting Nigeria's challenges for geopolitical advantage, calling instead for intelligence support rather than foreign military intervention. Meanwhile, Olubadan of Ibadan, or Barashidi Ladoja, appealed for calm and unity, warning that terrorists do not distinguish between Muslims and Christians. Political leaders, including APC chieftain Olatunbosun Oyintiloye, have also advised against inviting foreign troops, urging Nigerians to support the Tinubu administration's efforts to tackle insecurity through national cooperation and shared responsibility. Okay, I think this should be one of the most sensitive story we have here, and I mean, there's a growing war between Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria and the Nigerian Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs over the alleged Christian genocide. And I think Bishop Wale's or Wale Oke's remarks, I think, reflects a deep and painful reality that most Nigerians have been talking about for a while since this tension started. And many Christian communities, we cannot lie, in northern Nigeria have suffered horrific violence, have suffered a lot in the hands of extremist groups like Boko Haram, like ISWAP, and whatnot, other banditries and terrorism and practices. But then, it doesn't take away the fact, first of all, Professor Ishak came out to say that, his response was also valid, because he came out to say that we shouldn't frame the violence on one angle, or solely on religious, angle, that it may simplify much of a deeper crisis than what we are already experiencing. But much of Nigerians' conflict, according to him, too, can be intertwined with poverty, can be intertwined with banditry, and so many other things. But then, I feel like both the PFN and the NSCIA, if I'm getting that correctly, are both right and wrong, because the targeted violence against Christian communities, there is targeted violence against Christian communities, we know that. And also, there's also widespread violence against Muslims. We are Nigerians and we cannot lie about that. In other regions, not just in Benue, in Plateau, but in other regions. And at the end of the day, if we want to look at the broader picture, the victims here are Nigerians. The victims are not just this set of people, this other set of people. Are Muslims Nigerians here? Are Christians Nigerians here? So the victims I see here are Nigerians. So inviting, troops, as suggested by Bishop Oke, could easily worsen things. I feel like it could easily worsen things, because history have offered us some of these warnings. We've seen in Iraq, we've seen in Afghanistan, we've seen in Libya, and so many interventions from foreign bodies over their crisis, over internal crisis in these countries, and it has not done any good. So what Nigeria needs at this point in time is strategic, national security that is intelligence-led, that is not faith-based led. It should be more faith-neutral, even if religious bodies must come in to the finding the solutions. And also, it should be looking at how to develop the country as a whole.
Okay, Cynthia, for want of time and lack of it, I think that I'll stay with your thoughts, and then we'll just quickly wrap up with the headlines we brought your way. ASUU blames federal government's neglect for Nigeria's education crisis. And also, Total Energies warns Paris climate targets now out of reach. New report links global banks to billions in deforestation financing.
And lastly, Christian genocide allegations spark religious tension in Nigeria.
Stay with us. We'll be back on the other side with the discussion segment. We have a guest you can't wait to meet. Stay with us.
Number 9, hyper-personalized AI tutors in education tech. Education is going through a shift similar to what we've seen in entertainment and shopping. Hyper-personalization. Instead of one-size-fits-all lessons, AI tutors adapt in real time to how a student learns. Khan Academy launched Khanmigo, an AI-powered guide that helps students with math, science, and coding, while also assisting teachers with lesson planning. Duolingo uses AI to personalize language lessons, serving over 80 million monthly users worldwide. Global Market Insights projects that the AI and education market could surpass $30 billion by 2032. By 2026, AI tutors may become as common as textbooks once were. Number 3, sustainable tech and green computing. With data centers now consuming around 1 to 1.5% of the world's electricity, efficiency has become critical. Google, Microsoft, and Amazon are racing to power their data centers with renewable energy, while chip makers like NVIDIA and AMD are optimizing for performance per watt. Carbon capture startups are using AI to scale up efficiency, and researchers are designing fully recyclable electronics. In 2024, Microsoft announced it had achieved 100% renewable energy coverage for its global operations. By 2026, green computing will no longer be optional. It'll be baked into how the tech industry operates.
5G technology. 5G technology promises to be a game changer by delivering ultra-fast internet speeds, low latency, and the ability to connect millions of devices seamlessly. It's going to fuel the future of smart cities, autonomous vehicles, and IoT devices, allowing them to communicate in real time. However, 5G rollout isn't without hurdles. High costs of infrastructure and regulatory issues in some regions have slowed down implementation. By 2026, the 5G market is expected to remain cautious, as over-reliance on AI tools could introduce security vulnerabilities. As companies push for faster software delivery, AI-augmented development is becoming essential for maintaining competitiveness. Democratize generative AI. Generative AI, which creates new content like text, images, or music, is becoming more accessible. This trend is enabling businesses and individuals to leverage powerful AI tools without needing deep technical expertise. Tools like DALL-E are already transforming marketing, entertainment, and design. However, as generative AI becomes democratized, concerns about copyright infringement and misuse of content are rising.
Welcome back to the discussion segment. Today we are looking into a conversation that stirred global attention and its intervention and position. Trump's threat and Nigeria's quest for peace. President Donald Trump recently warned of possible military action in Nigeria over what he described as a Christian genocide, and his statement follows a pattern of strong rhetoric, including his refusal to attend